All right, here we go. We have Frank Cullotta, former Las Vegas mobster and hitman, whose story was partly depicted in the classic Scorsese movie Casino.
That's correct. I was a consultant and
Correct.
acted in the movie.
And we'll talk about that at
All
the end
right.
of the interview. But I want to get into your whole story because it's a very interesting story. So you were born in Chicago in 1938,
That's correct.
and your father was a gangster.
My father was he was a criminal, a crook. He wasn't a gangster.
Okay, what's the difference?
A gangster, you belong to a group of people. You're part of an organization. He was independent.
Okay.
He could have been a gangster anytime he wanted, but he preferred not to be.
Okay. And apparently your father was a killer.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know how many people he killed?
I was quite young then. I can only tell you from what I heard, and it sounded to me like at least 3 or 4.
Okay. And the way he died was actually a car crash running away from the police.
That's correct. They were chasing him. At the time they had bootlegging stamps. It was like you used to buy stuff with these stamps, government stamps. In his car, he had a whole bunch of them in the car. And that's why he took off from the police.
Okay. And you were what, 8 years old when he died?
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember him, but you didn't have him in
I
your life
remember
a
him
lot.
very well. I didn't know what he'd
Okay.
done for a living, but I know it was the apple of his heart, his eye.
Okay. So here you are, a little kid, and now your dad passes away. And although he didn't expose you to the criminal life, you started to actually be around it fairly early.
Yeah, I took notice of his friends, the people who he socialized with, because they were very good to me. They'd buy me toys, they'd buy me stuff that the ordinary kid couldn't have. Not be known to me, it was probably stolen. Uh, and I liked the way they dressed. I liked the way he dressed, the clothes they wore, the types of cars they drove. And he used to always put me in between his legs to steer the car. So I liked to drive. And I didn't know how done, but I liked it.
And very early on, you became friends with Tony Spilotro, whose character was played by Joe Pesci in Casino.
That's a fact, yeah.
Okay, so how did the two of you become friends?
Well, I didn't like to go to school. So my mother says, you got to start earning money. You don't want to go to school? She says, make yourself a shoebox. Go out there and shine shoes. So I built a shoebox. And I went on the street, which was right in front of my house. It was called Grand Avenue. And I went down the street towards Elmwood Park, it's a little suburb. And they had a lot of gas stations. Taverns. We call them taverns. So you go into taverns, you shine some trunk shoes. He'd give you a quarter or a nickel. So doing this, first couple of days, I was doing pretty good. Then I ran into somebody, and I heard a guy yelling, "Hey, you!" And I looked, and there was this little short guy on the other side of the street. "Come here," he said. So I followed him to the middle of the street. At that time, there were streetcars. There was cars, but there were streetcars. So we met in the middle of the street, and he said to me, he says, "This is my territory. I don't want you in it." I had a cocky mouth even back then. I was about 12 years old. I looked up at the street sign. I said, "I don't see your name on that street sign." And he says, "If you're here tomorrow, I'm going to break your head." I said, "I'll be here tomorrow." He said, "What's your name?" So I said, "Cullotta." And he said, "All right, what's your first name?" I said, "Frank Cullotta." I didn't bother to ask him his name, but "I'll be here tomorrow." So he left and I left. The next 3, 4 days I was back there. I didn't see him. Maybe a week went by. Then I heard my name again. We met in the middle of the street. I didn't know what he was going to say to me, of course. He said, "What's your father's first name?" I said, "What do you want to know for?" He says, "Because my father might know your father." Thinking, how the hell would his father know my father? And I said, "Joe." He says, "My father knows your father." He says, "Your father saved my father's life." He says, "We got to become friends." we're going to be lifelong friends, more or less words to that effect. And I said, all right. So then he explained to me how his father heard it. He was discussing with his 4 or 5 other brothers about the incidents with me. I guess he was looking for them to come to help him. I don't know. And the father overheard it in the other room. And that's when the father approached him and said, find out what that boy's father's first name was, because he heard Cullotta. All right. So from that day on, we became friends. And we stole together, fought together, other people. We didn't fight with each other. I never had a fight with each other, physical fight with each other.